Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. So Sanjay Jasani is an extremely well-known investor mentor, more a mentor, an investor also, but he is a highly regarded mentor in the city, a great friend of the institute. Is always there. He's on our board and also always helpful. Anything and anytime should we ask for any help. So Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us. And the topic is very apt. Balancing growth and risk is, I think, is the challenge. I mean, most startups may not see it that way, but that's a challenge they're dealing with almost day in, day out. Whether to invest or not invest, whether to do or not to do. There's always a cost of doing something, and the returns of whatever they need to do is never clear. So that balance is what we are going to discuss today. So Sanjay, just to get started, just to understand what are the different, I mean, what is the typical need, I mean, a startup? Why is this balance required even?
Sure. Firstly, thank you, Ramesh. I'm always happy to be here as part of the Institute activities, and all of you do such wonderful work for the ecosystem. So always here. And it's a great topic, I think, balancing growth and risk. Because frankly, Ramesh, as you would agree, the startup ecosystem is one of those unique ecosystems which already had a very select sort of success rate of about 5% or so. And more so when you go through risks like what we have gone through, once in lifetime risks, where such large enterprises, large nations like the US or nations in Europe, millions of people, maybe billions of people have been affected. Startups being so fragile enterprises would naturally get severely affected. There is no question. And I really feel for a lot of my startup friends. As you know, I spent the last 6 years in the ecosystem. And in many ways, I have a background where early days, we had a family unit in manufacturing, during which time I have seen, physical manufacturing go through great times and then adversity. So just to give you that little bit of background, before I spent 20 years in IT in a relatively cushy life with no issues on money, never having to go to the bank, I spent 10 years of my life pursuing the banker and everything else.
You lived that uncertain world for those few years.
Absolutely. But to your point, Ramesh, I think it's very important, and I just want to be able to bring out for a lot of our startup friends the fact that before you can grow, you need to be able to manage risk. And at the structural level, what is very important, Ramesh, as I see very often, is that a lot of startups would benefit by spending a little more time in terms of their setup, a little more time in terms of their planning, a little more focus on the team which they built up, the problem they address, Ramesh, because those, I believe, are very structural factors which determine your ability to withstand risk. Structurally, there is such a high failure rate in this industry. So what I'm saying, Ramesh, is that one looks at, for example, right, if you were to look at a place like Japan, which has actually come back, and I look at a lot of outside world examples to be inspired by in terms of resilience, in terms of managing adversity. Japan post World War II, post the Hiroshima bombing, it was a nation which was wiped out 1945 to 50. But what a nation, it came back, and how, right? You look at Israel today, surrounded by adversity. So I would tell my startup friends, Ramesh, that there are inspiring examples out there. I think we have to find a way of how we build those strengths which have allowed such examples to be resilient and to come out. Now, even in terms of growth, I think what is very important, Ramesh, is that I see a lot of startups looking at purely the funding factor and assuming that that is the only fuel which will help them to withstand the issue and which will help them to grow. Unfortunately, funding is a very important fuel, but the other elements are very important, Ramesh. And those are the elements which I would want startups to focus on also. I hope I sort of addressed that
No,
broad starting
absolutely.
point,
I think
Ramesh.
that's a very, very important point. I mean, that inherent strengths of an organization, of a startup,
Yeah.
when they are going to be resource starved, they're going to be like always very, very frugal in everything, in their team, in their funding, everything. Making sure the right strengths are there, it's very important. I think most startups don't understand that. They think we will do it later. I mean, the later may never come if they don't exist.
Absolutely.
So now, I think this brings the biggest challenge. I mean, now in a startup journey, like any business, there are many, many things they need to do. Even if they were to look at their product, there are many things they need to build. If they look at the markets, there are many markets they can go after.
Correct.
But I think at some level, the balance comes off in saying, like, what do they invest in? Now, that's one key risk mitigation. Now, if you invest in the right things, then now what are those right things that they should focus on when they will perpetually, if not perpetually, at least in the early days, they will be always starved for resources.
So
What
true.
are those right things that they can focus on so that like that risk mitigation is at least to some extent realized?
Perfect. Perfect, Ramesh. I think that takes us to again another structural factor, Ramesh, which I see and I'm citing from practical example because like you, I get to meet hundreds of startups, every year, and I get to see people at very close quarters. One of the things I see, Ramesh, which startups would gain from is to always look at a customer problem to solve and work backwards from there. I'll give you a startling example of a recent success story. A company called Udaan. We all know Udaan, right? They are basically into sort of e-commerce where they are a B2B e-commerce player, essentially servicing the huge amount of Kirana distribution channels which exist all over India. There is organized retail, but that organized retail is a small percentage. Now, what did Udaan do, right? So, Udaan found a really good problem to solve. Who was Udaan founded by? It was founded by the first 10 employees of Flipkart. There were three of the founders who were among the first 10 team members of Flipkart. They found a huge problem to solve. They built a whole MVP around how they wanted to solve the problem. They bootstrapped initially, they went to VCs, and they raised the highest round ever in investment history in recent times, $585 million, Ramesh. Now, why did they get that sort of a money, right? So, what were they looking at? Is it just that their luck worked? Because, one meets startups all the time who are always naturally, suffering from the problem that even to raise a $25,000 or $100,000, their issue is nobody is believing in them. So I go back to your point, Ramesh, that can you find a good problem to solve, right? Have you ideally had an opportunity to work in that space, whether in your corporate experience, whether within the family business, right? Whether you had a chance to work within a startup which was addressing that space. If you have taken the time to gather experience in soaking yourself around that problem and what are the real problems the customers are facing, your sort of groundwater of ideas will begin to form where you will find an elegant way to solve that problem, Ramesh. And I sincerely believe that startups can withstand competition which may be 1000x, 10,000x their size if they address problems which are underserved, under sort of there is not enough attention or they are poorly addressed. Those can be a clear way to actually find a good problem and build an elegant solution. And that can significantly change your success rate. Back to you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic point. I think just making sure the problem is relevant and worth solving
Yeah.
is the first part. I mean, like often, like you rightly said, many early stage startups are onto something, but it's little nebulous. It's
Right.
not that they're completely on the wrong track, but it's not convincing enough also.
True.
I think finding the problem is the first thing.
Yeah.
Now, once they've chosen the problem, in the early days, what do they focus on? I think most startups miss out, like you have to pick. You can't do everything.
True. True.
Now, so what do they focus on? Having picked the right problem,
Yeah.
what do they focus on in the first iteration of whatever they're building, the business and the product?
No, that's a great point, Ramesh. So I would look at that. how do you put together a small team of complementary skills? That's number one. And number two, Ramesh, again, this is a challenge I see among deep tech startups, among startups which leverage technology significantly, right? I think what's very important to focus on initially after having identified the problem is how do you quickly get to a stage where you can find your first 10 customers, right? How do you, while you are building your product, while you are getting your MVP, getting the product market fit, find a way to begin to solve that problem. Own your customer. Can you own your customer? That becomes very important, Ramesh. And that often leads you back to your product. So what I find, Ramesh, is unfortunately a lot of product slash platform startups assume that the product is 90% of the journey and they can build the product over 2 years, consuming 90% of the investment which they raise, and the balance 10% will be enough to go to the market. And a lot of them find the hard way that that just doesn't work. I believe, Ramesh, and I've used this example earlier, like the engineering marvel, which was the channel, right? The underwater tunnel between UK and France, right? It was an engineering marvel because they started from both sides of the channel and they met exactly at the midpoint. They didn't just start from one point. I like to use that as a humorous example to say you must start early with your customer problem, find ways where you are solving the problem. You could be using somebody else's solution initially, but can you get your first 10 customers? Can you get your first 100 customers as you go into MVP? What I must share with you, Ramesh, is very recently, over the past few months, I'm actually watching a mature entrepreneur, a third time entrepreneur, very closely as he's starting his new company. And believe me, this is my first experience. I've been part of a startup journey in Sierra Atlantic, as you know, but watching this mature entrepreneur and the way he's approaching his whole startup is an education in itself. And there's so much to learn. So what I'm also trying to say, and a lot of startup founders sort of, think that why should they? It would be great to work one time in a mature startup, gain that experience, because that is invaluable, Ramesh. And those can bring you a lot of points which help you in your own journey when you are ready to launch, Ramesh. Back to you. Yeah.
No, absolutely, Sanjay. I think that there's no substitute for some wisdom, even if you gain it on some other's expense or some other's experience.
Yeah.
No substitute for it. But
True.
I think very few either realize and do it or they have the opportunity. Either way, but most startups, like you said, we meet are first-time entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And they kind of struggle their way through. And then when they succeed, they succeed. But it's a struggle because they don't have the past experiences to draw upon. One thing I mean, if you just touched upon like just work towards getting customers, I think that is one thing I see missing in most startups, and that's where I think they increase the risk.
Correct.
Like if they get customers, they're going to grow either organically or inorganically through raising some funds and such. But getting customers is critical to grow either way. Now, I think the focus on, if you look at it, like you rightly said, take a large amount of money, self money or invested money, and spend 2 years building a product. They've accumulated so much risk.
Correct.
Instead of like saying that, can I break that into like 10 chunks? Each chunk is value to somebody. I'll understand for whom it's a value. I'm going to build only for that first.
True.
And then build the next chunk. And that is something that's missing. How would you suggest? How do they? I mean, it's much easier to think of this as a requirement and tell the startups do this, but it's so hard to figure out how. What would be your suggestion in terms of how they can chunk their product in a way that every chunk gets them either customers or some customer feedback meaningfully?
Yeah. That's a very interesting approach, Ramesh. And let me take the example of a drone startup, for example, right? So a drone startup which is using a really high-tech analytical software. So they acquire the drones, they have built the software, gives them a high-resolution view, and they are finding use cases, right, Ramesh? So for example, if I were to apply that to the point which you said, which is a beautiful point about chunking, right? So what I'm saying is in the current period, for example, the floods in Hyderabad, right? if you have a solution which can help and you find your way to a right authority which can make use of that solution. So the point here, Ramesh, is that you have to be constantly engaged with your customers, whether they are prospects, whether they are non-paying customers, whether they are use cases. That element of engagement, that allocation of your bandwidth, and like it or not, a startup founder's life is very lonely, and you need to do everything. It's a triathlon, right? So you have to be raising funding, you have to be finding good co-founders, you have to be looking for prospects. But that is a fact, Ramesh. And what I look at is, I think startup founders must realize, and they should not feel sort of disappointed or negative, because this is a journey which almost every entrepreneur of any shape and size has gone through. In fact, I divert a little, but this is an element I find that founders begin to get discouraged when they try three, four, approaches to their prospect, or like you said, they start chunking and things don't happen, right? Things have not happened for every successful entrepreneur in the first maybe 3 to 4 years. A lot of entrepreneurs have only succeeded 7 years, 10 years later. So I also believe, Ramesh, that that whole expectation, that whole, building your resilience for the journey, the realism of that journey. I mean, you are a fitness person, right, Ramesh? So I bring back, it's like climbing Mount Everest. I can't. I can go to a walk to KBR Park and do 2 rounds. That's not a problem. But if I were to try climbing Mount Everest, I need to prepare for 2 years to be ready for that. So those elements become equally important, Ramesh. I keep jumping into some of these aspects because those are the practical elements which I see which weigh down a lot of founders, Ramesh. Back to you.
No, no, absolutely. I think like being mindful of what are required. I mean, I think the first step in this process, like the founders to be mindful of what
Yeah,
they're good at and
yeah,
what is it that they need that they don't have today.
true.
Once that is half the job done. Then you
Yeah,
can find an advisor, you can find somebody to come help over the weekends, you can hire if you can afford to hire. But
correct.
knowing what is required is the most important thing. Absolutely. I think like there are many founders, they learn it the hard way. They eventually learn it. But
Yeah.
after going through a lot of pain, probably that was avoidable.
Yeah, in fact, during current times, just to add, Ramesh, what I'm also seeing is that uh, every startup is facing a lot of adversity, right? A lot of startups are just sort of shutting down. But even in these times, if you are actively reaching out, for example, for a few startups, right? Whether it's health, whether it's education, almost any form of online startups have taken off. The whole COVID moment has been like the demonetization moment was for payment startups, right? I knew of a few payment startups which were struggling, and then Prime Minister Modi announced demonetization, and it was a whole new moment for them, right? So COVID, as unfortunate as it has been, as it has affected so many people, a lot of startups have found their opportunity during this period. So what I'm saying, Ramesh, is that that sort of that self propulsion, right? That willingness to continuously engage, look for partners, look for a path to your market. Maybe that path is through an existing large corporate who owns those customers. Maybe you have an element of a solution which can plug into a larger solution which is addressing a real need of a customer. So we have no choice as entrepreneurs. You have to keep your velocity going. You have to be constantly seeking to find ways to reach your customer, Ramesh. And I'm actually seeing quite a few startups do very well in being able to patch through into opportunities, managing to ride this time through and slowly beginning to come back, Ramesh. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
No, no, absolutely. I think we were surprised that even in the second survey, first survey, we had 70% startups that said they're looking at a better outlook than in March when we did the survey end of
That's
April.
impressive.
Second survey
That's
said
impressive.
50%. When we did this in July, we
Right.
haven't done the third survey is due now. The
Right.
second survey said 50% of startups were still expecting the outlook to be better than it was in March.
Sure.
So you're right. I mean, some of them are capitalizing on it very well.
Yeah.
Now, in the early stage, the biggest risk mitigation is to go after customers. Do
Correct.
I mean, keep the long-term view. You don't have to do like, it should be like, if you're building in 10 parts, the 10 parts should lead to your goal. It shouldn't be 10 disparate parts. So while keeping a long-term view, but still focus, the part you pick is something you get your customer immediately, whatever that is. You know
Absolutely.
somebody in Dr. Reddy's and that can be your first customer, build for Dr. Reddy's.
Correct.
It doesn't matter you're getting it because you know somebody, but you need a customer. How you get it doesn't matter. And so that is one part of it. Now, as the startup grows, the risks also change. How does that evolve? I mean, as the startup grows, how do risks change?
No, so basically that is true, Ramesh. So what tends to happen is initially, you are sort of very light in every way. If you look at, right, you may be just bootstrapped. So you you are sort of pursuing a certain element, but as you pick up funding, as your team size grows, as you begin to get revenues, what happens is a lot of other risks begin to come in, right? There are market risks, there are pricing risks, there are financing. For example, a lot of startups get stuck with customers who don't pay their bills, right? So this is not something which early startups often face, but I often like to tell startups that in terms of your cash flow management also, you have to be very careful, more so early on when you are so fragile. For example, working with the government can be a double-edged weapon, right? You could get opportunities to work with the government as a customer, but you have to prepare for a lot of uncertainty in terms of the payments of your bills and everything. So those risks become much larger, Ramesh. That's one element which comes in. The second element which I see happening is as a startup begins to invest in the team, right? As the product gets built, there are risks where some of your team members may get headhunted and may get pulled away into larger companies. So there
The
is a whole food chain, yeah,
price of success.
price of success. There is a whole food chain which is applying in terms of your IP, in terms of your talent, in terms of your customers. So those are again, I wouldn't call them unusual risks, Ramesh. But as you grow, again to bring back the Mount Everest climbing comparison analogy, right? So you are going from base camp 0 to base camp 1 to base camp 2. And I like to say that the Sherpas, the equipment, your acclimatization needs to change at each level of base camp, Ramesh. So you're right, the risks go up, but on the positive side, the benefits are better. Size gets you a chance to get invited to larger parties. You begin to build certain reserves. So one of the elements which, as you know, I'm very passionate about, Ramesh, is the whole pursuit of profitability as you grow, right? If you look at the last 30 years of the startup cycles, Ramesh, every 4 to 7 years, the cycle goes up and down, right? There is a madness where a lot of capital is chasing. Every VC is talking about blitz scaling, buy your customers. It doesn't matter. The more money you lose, you and I have seen the whole eyeball period, right? The dot-com boom and things like that. So what I have seen, Ramesh, is again, if I look at the Japan example, if you have built a business which is built on a multiple of your profitability, if you are profitable, you can survive an earthquake Richter scale 9.8, right? You will still be there. But if you have built extended on a gross loss basis, you have acquired customers consuming 90% of the capital you raised just to acquire those customers, you constantly need to be fed. That machine is then a lion which needs to be fed all the time. And it's only the top 2 or 3 companies in a particular market who can afford to get that funding on a continuous basis. The fourth company onwards, they begin to fall away because VCs then select who are the first 3 and they just kill the others, right? So those will not survive a Richter scale of even 4.0 and they collapse, Ramesh. So those are the risks which come in. And the saddest part which one looks at is there have been unicorns which have gone to multi-billion dollar, right? Even if you look at WeWork today, from a $40 billion valuation down to less than $1 billion. And there are several others which will probably face that fate, Ramesh. So there are risks involved as you go along. Absolutely. Yeah.
So they should not, past success is not assured, I mean, an assurance for future success.
Absolutely.
They have to expect the unexpected. What they got earlier is not what they will expect next.
Correct.
Now, this
and
whole,
build your foundation. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that is true. Their foundational strengths are most important. Whether it is IP strength, team strength, culture strength, market strength, all those are very important. I think that is something they need to be very mindful. Now, one factor that comes is like, often there is a shelf life of any opportunity. That's what you say. Like, I mean, the reason to raise money is not that you can't grow without it.
Sure.
The pace of growth might be slow and you might miss out some opportunities if you grow at that slow pace. Correct. So the idea to raise money is right to raise meaningfully. You don't raise money to buy customers. Like you said, that is a very weak premise. Correct. But you raise money to kind of actually grow and tap into an opportunity faster. Now, whether you raise money or you invest your own money, the trade-off is that, I mean, if I put more efforts now, whether it's on the product or marketing or whatever, I can capture the market and build that gap between me and my other contenders. Sure. Flip side is like the more you invest, the risk is higher. Like you said, your strength on profitability, you can sustain a shock. But when you're growing on money at a fast clip, which means you're either eating at your profitability or even less going negative. Yeah. How do you make this call? I mean, this is the right. It's not an. What are some considerations in this call?
No, it's a great point, Ramesh. And personally, let me share my philosophy, Ramesh, is that it's a great point. I think a lot of companies, a lot of investors actually want you, like even Udaan, for example. My understanding is I don't think they went to raise that sort of money, but the VCs basically decided this was a good team, this is a great problem to solve, so take this money and go and solve it, right? So they were probably overfunded, if you ask me, right? Personally, I believe that that element is a little overrated, Ramesh, because I look at it this way, that for any serious market, right? Any size of a problem in a serious market is probably a few hundred million or a billion size, right? Yes, you are right. There will be competition. There will be other players who will come in, but people will come in, make their effort. Some will survive, some will die. So I'm basically a proponent of a foundational approach, Ramesh. I'm a proponent of velocity, but a measured aggression, that you keep gaining ground, but you don't have to lose ground while you gain ground, Ramesh. So I look at it from that element. I go back to the point I made, that the luxury of being able to acquire a market in an accelerated manner is often not available to some of the large part of startups whom we normally get to meet, right? It's sort of available to certain sets of founders who have certain track records which they have worked on. And they are, a high risk is being taken by those VCs, Ramesh. So I would really want to, sort of look at a more foundational approach. That's the way I would.
I mean, I can see the tension, the conflict in your mind. I mean, you're CFO by practice, and you're an active investor in risk-taking businesses by current life you're living. So I'm sure there's a conflict in your mind. Like, you want to take bets, but the CFO says, "No, be careful."
and I have to be who I am, Ramesh. So it comes from having lived that life.
I think that's what makes you a great mentor. You want to encourage risk-taking, at the same time, very mindful of sustainability. No point burning out. I mean, like, so Sanjay, it's been fantastic. We have hit the half-hour mark, and so this is something that we can go on talking. There's so much to talk about it, but I think it's been a great teaser, if you will, on this whole growth versus risk balance, the very delicate balancing. So fantastic insight, Sanjay. Thank you so much. As always.
Thank you.
And
it's been a pleasure.
Probably we'll get you back again sometime. We'll do a follow-on on a little bit more specific aspects of growth versus risk.
Happy to,
Thank you,
Ramesh.
Sanjay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wish you all the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.